DC, I would say I'm usually up at 6 or 6:30 every morning. I take my dog out for a walk and then come back and get ready for work. And then I'm usually in the office by 9, sometimes earlier if I have early morning meeting. So I drink coffee and I also drink tea in the morning sometimes. It just depends. But yeah, I like my coffee with cream and Splenda. So a lot of milk or cream. Same with my tea. Most days I drive in. I live far enough away that it's not too long of a commute, but there have been days when I've actually biked into work. Well, they have parking underneath all of the buildings. And so I do have a parking spot that I pay for, that it comes out of my monthly paycheck. When I plan my day in the district, I get to set the meeting times and where the meetings are, usually whether they're in the office or whether they're outside of the office, or if there are like community events that we go to, we know the start time and the end time. Here in DC, it's a little bit tougher because we have hearings that sometimes go longer than we expect. And in the middle of those hearings, we might get called to go vote across the street in the Capitol. We're in a committee hearing or a committee markup, and then the bell rings for votes and we have 15 minutes to get across the street to go vote. And we might just have one vote, we might have 2 or 3 votes, or we might have a bunch of votes. So we could be there for hours sometimes voting, and the rest of the hearing we never get a chance to finish. Or some members on the committee may go across the street to vote and come back, and then other members go so that we can keep the hearing going. But it's a little bit crazy sometimes because the vote schedule can interrupt anything that you're doing at any time, and then you've got to get across the Capitol to vote. And then sometimes we have votes that go, late into the night, past midnight, sometimes 1, 2, 3 o'clock. I've been here when we've had votes all night until like 5 o'clock in the morning the next day. And then we have a couple hours to go home and sleep and change. And then we come back at 9 a.m. and start all over again. I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that our schedules are very, in DC, they're very hard to plan. And we work a lot of late nights and sometimes very early mornings. Much easier, I should say, to manage my schedule when I'm back in the district. So I do like it when I'm back in the district. I love being out in the district, talking with constituents, and then, the weather's always much better in California than in Washington, DC. It's really hard to talk about in terms of what a typical day is like, is that no one day is like the next. They're all very different depending on what meetings you have to go to or what your committee is doing. So most mornings, I usually have a meeting at 9. That might be a Democratic caucus meeting. It might be a Democratic whip meeting. It might be a committee meeting of, the Democratic members on the Ways and Means Committee. So if there's a 9 a.m. meeting, it's usually one of those meetings. Sometimes I have meetings with parliamentarians from other countries that come to talk about specific issues. So those might be, morning meetings as well. Once a week, I meet with the members from California to discuss issues that are specific to California. One day a week, I have a lunch meeting with the Hispanic caucus members to discuss issues of importance to the Hispanic community. It's very true. People think that we have chauffeur-driven limousines and private jets, and that's not the case at all. And we, usually have to walk from building to building for committee meetings or hearings or across the street to vote. So it's a lot of walking. And if you're a woman and you wear heels like me, it can be really tough. There are days when I look at like my step count and I've, walked 6 miles, but I've done it in high heel shoes, and nobody would ever like put on a pair of high heel shoes and go on a track and walk 6 miles, because that's crazy, right? Sometimes we're so busy, we don't have time to eat lunch. And so you grab what you can when you can. And sometimes that's something out of the vending machines. We do have attached to the floor where we vote is called the cloakroom, and they do have snacks for sale there. But they're not exactly, healthy snacks, just in case, votes go past midnight and you haven't eaten, you can get something to eat there, but it's definitely not fancy. Might have a committee hearing that starts at 10 and goes from 10 to maybe noon or 1 o'clock. Or you might have, like I said, other meetings like, the Hispanic Caucus meeting is always Thursday at 11:30. There's, Progressive Caucus meeting that happens usually on a Wednesday. There's just different meetings that you will do throughout the day. Sometimes, I'll go back to the office after, an early morning meeting and talk with staff about legislation or what's coming up on the vote calendar this week and the bills that we're going to be voting on. We discuss, the bills that they're going to, likely have on the floor for votes. I might take meetings in my office with people who come in to talk to me about specific issues. Sometimes Zoom meetings explain what we're working on in Congress, or, talk about upcoming hearings in our committee. That's usually what happens throughout the day. Afternoon, I might answer some emails. I might take more meetings in my office. I might talk with staff about ideas for bills that I have and sort of discuss how we would go about drafting a bill. Afternoons typically are a little bit quieter than the mornings, but we still take meetings in the afternoons. I might have meetings off the campus, so not in the Capitol buildings with folks. So that's typically what my afternoons might look like. I'd say that our days usually end around 7 p.m. And on the rare occasion, we might be done with votes at 4 o'clock. So we might technically not have any legislative votes, but it doesn't mean we don't have work to do in our offices. Probably my most productive times for getting things off my to-do list are if votes end early and I have like some hours in the afternoon to answer emails or, read constituent letters, or, like I said, talk to my staff about ideas for bills, etc. Yeah, so something that you'll see in just about every office in Congress is we have the TV on and the news running 24/7. So when we're back in our offices, we're always keeping up on the news. Also, I get news alerts on my phone. So if there's breaking news, like, the Supreme Court has came down with a decision, I can read the news on my phone. And so I know what's going on. In my committee, we do have hearings and we do have markups, but a lot of committees, they're not very active, or they haven't been very active. And so we're not getting, our hands around some of the biggest issues that are facing our country. I mean, our country is based on majority rule, so we're not able to get a lot done. For me, it's usually around 11 p.m. And I should say that I bring my dog with me into the office. So throughout the day, I'll also try to take her out for a quick walk. It gets me, fresh air, lets me think. Sometimes a staffer may come with me and we'll chat about things as, we kind of take a little mini break. So before I go to bed, usually around 10 o'clock is the last time that I'll take the dog out. I'll take her for a walk, get back to the house, do the nighttime routine of brushing the teeth, looking at the schedule for the next day and the materials that I have to review for the next day, read those, and then I go to bed. This job is really tough on families, especially on working moms. It's hard to carve out time with your family and not have that be interrupted by work, because the work creeps into every hour of every day. When COVID hit and you couldn't gather, I finally got to spend 4th of July with my family, which was nice. I think what people don't understand about members of Congress, they look at the legislative calendar and they think we work so few days of the year that we're not working hard. We work holidays, we work weekends, we work evenings. We could have votes until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then we got to get up and come back and do it at 9 a.m. the next day. So it's the unpredictability of the schedule means, and the big workload means that, it's very hard to balance life and family. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. I thank you for your interest. It's, I always enjoy talking to people about what I do and to try to give them an idea and some flavor for what I do, because, many people have a misconception about what our jobs really are. And yeah, they're not as luxurious, I think, as people think,
Yeah,
think that they are.
I think that too. Yeah.
And this was a day in the life of a congresswoman. Thanks for watching.